Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're here taping at the Hollywood Museum in the historic Max Factor building, and you should all come down and see the collection. And our guests are actor-director Daniel Talbot and author-professor Damon Willick. San Francisco native Daniel Talbot is an actor, writer, director who graduated from Juilliard and Solano College. He's written and directed a vast number of plays as he continued his association with the Rattlestick Players, the Lucille Lortel Theater, and the award-winning Rising Phoenix Repertory. He's a director who's directing Charlotte Miller's play Thieves. So, when you were in San Francisco, did you always want to act, or were you going to direct, or what were you going to do?
I was actually a baseball player. So
oh, you were?
I was really obsessed with baseball and marine biology, and
the perfect place.
I basically it was a little bit different, and I had a girlfriend, and that we would make small movies together, and we had a blast doing it. She was an actor. She acted for ACT there, and
ACT was great. Did you ever work there?
I did, and that's where I started. Was ACT in the Young Conservatory there. So.
Oh, you did. Oh, the young. So where were you playing baseball?
I was playing baseball in 5 different leagues a year because it's California, so you can play year round. High school, junior high, and then I fell in love with theater and kind of ran away with the circus. Were
you going to go to college? Were you going to go with baseball?
Yeah, I was going to try to go to college and play baseball, and then I fell in love with theater, and my grandpa had a nervous breakdown about it.
I was going to say, what about the rest of the family?
He was like, what happened? And, but they were very supportive, so in the end.
So then you went to Juilliard.
Yeah, first I worked in the Bay Area, in the local Bay Area theater.
Doing what?
Working for places like Berkeley Rep and ACT and Cinerep.
Oh, you did. So you're like interning, actually learning at the same time, right?
I was making my living as a young actor, but also going to Solano College Theater Actors Training Program.
Oh, you were actually acting and making a living?
Yeah,
as much
in
plays,
a living in the theater,
But how did you do that? Had you taken acting classes?
I had trained for a little bit with ACT, and
But that was it?
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to get an agent and start doing some small film and TV and stuff and commercials.
Do you think it was easier in San Francisco?
Yeah, much easier. I think it's a really supportive, amazing theater community, much like the Los Angeles community. It's very small. It's very supportive. It's very tight knit.
You think LA is the same way?
I find it that way.
I think it is too. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah,
it seems like there's more contacts in LA than San Francisco, but maybe not.
I think it's a larger community here. It's more spread out.
Right.
But I find it has much the same kind of spirit and kind of raucous heart.
That's interesting because I was on the Arts Council, and of course we had people, Peter Coyote and Charlie Hayde, who used to be on the council with me, and they were both theater people in San Francisco. And they were supportive. I mean, like Robin Williams was always supportive of the arts. So I guess just that very small community.
Yeah, it's an amazing community, and I feel really blessed to have started there. And I think it prepared me for New York because
I was going to say, did they
support
you in going to Juilliard?
Hugely, and I feel like I had kind of a small, San Francisco's not a small town, but comparatively to New York, so I had like a small town spirit in a big town, and so I hope it kept me humble and kind of my feet on the ground.
So when you went to Juilliard, did you have to audition?
Oh, hugely, yeah. Juilliard is one of the most hellish auditions on earth.
So did you audition for acting or directing?
For acting. And I auditioned in San Francisco, which I was also really thankful to do because I felt like I had like a home field advantage in a way. And it's not quite as intense as the New York audition, now having helped with both. And so, I felt really lucky to go to that school.
That's great. So as the literary manager of Rattlestick first of all, tell us what Rattlestick is, and then tell us what a literary manager does.
Rattlestick is one of my 2 theater homes. It is a company that's mentored our company. David Vanisselt, the artistic director, is like family to me. He has been kind of one of the biggest influences in my life, in my career. And so I started working for him, and they call me literary manager. I'm one of like 4 literary managers. We're kind of the whole artistic staff for David.
Oh, is that it?
We do everything from read a lot of the plays that come in, to help him make production decisions, to helping with development and workshopping, and throwing out kind of ideas for the future artistic growth of Rattlestick.
And does Rattlestick produce Thieves, which is the play you're directing right now?
Rattlestick produces both off-Broadway and now in Los Angeles. This is our 3rd play out here, and they're one
So
of the,
Rattlestick's from New York?
Yeah, Rattlestick is an off-Broadway theater company in New York.
Oh, it is. It is. I see.
And our main home base is in New York, but we really love the LA theater community. We've been trying to kind of become more a part of it.
So do you live in New York?
I live in New York, but we've kind of been a little bit bi-coastal, my wife and I.
Oh, wow.
I'm starting to work some in TV and film as well, and we're trying to kind of be in both places with our 9-year-old son. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. So where does he go to school?
He goes to school at PS3.
He goes to PS3?
But for a show like this, we take him out and we do private tutoring as part of the production, and then we re-enroll him when we're finished.
Because you're artistic director at Lucille Lortel, which is a new... I know.
No. Lucille Lortel, we won a Lucille Lortel award for our theater company.
Oh, you did? That's what it was?
But I'm not grand enough to be the artistic director.
I was wondering what all these
Lucille
things were.
Lortel.
Oh, so you won an award from them.
Our company, Rising Phoenix Repertory, along with our producing partner, Piece by Piece, and the Barrow Group, won an award.
Because it was like so confusing with the rep company and Rattlestick and all this. They're all collaborating.
It's a large family. It's our company is Rising Phoenix Rep. We were mentored by Rattlestick, that I also work at.
See that Rising Phoenix Rep, yeah.
And then our producing partner is Piece by Piece and Weather Vane, and so we all work together a lot, and also separately and together.
You're going to tell me what Weather Vane is afterwards, but right now I know you've written a lot of plays. What's the subject matter of your plays, basically?
Oh my gosh, they run the gamut of everything. From my play Slipping out here was about my gay best friend in high school, and kind of his life and his problems with mass depression and suicide. And so that's what my first play was about. And I've written everything from plays about, my next play at Rattlestick in New York is about soldiers starving to death in the desert.
Wow.
Lots of cheery stuff, you know. I guess it has
so
that.
So is that anything like the story of Thieves?
No, Thieves is about a Texas and East Texas family that's very biographical for the playwright Charlotte Miller.
And Charlotte Miller is one of these group of young women playwrights.
Yeah, she's amazing.
They seem to hang together.
Yeah, they have to. They got to fight for, they statistically, female playwrights and playwrights of color are really underrepresented in the theater, and so I think they're sick of it, so they're bonding together and they're like, we're not going to take this shit anymore, which is good, and they're fighting for themselves and for their rights in the theater.
But you must think a lot about the play, or you must think that it's a great play for you to be directing it, and for the Rattlestick to be supporting it. And
I think Charlotte is a tremendous playwright. I really love this play. I mean, I don't know if she told you the story about what happened with this play, but we, Rising Phoenix Rep, our company, along with our producing partner Piece by Piece, commissioned 3 women playwrights to write plays.
Oh, right. I saw that there were 3 young women, right?
Yeah, varying ages, but just
Charlotte's,
people.
What is she, 30?
She's actually her birthday today. She's 32. I hope she doesn't kill me for saying that.
32.
I hope
so
she is not
young,
mad about
I
that.
know.
But so we commissioned these 3 women playwrights to kind of try to help with some of the disparity of playwrights in theater, women playwrights in theater.
But did they have a certain thing to write about?
No, we commissioned them to write about whatever they wanted to write about, and the thing is that we'll see it from development through production. So it's more in support of them as artists than it is about kind of dictating them what they need to write about.
So each woman would get a different director from your group?
I'm going to direct all 3 of the first 3, and if we continue forward, then we're going to try to actually have full female design team, female director, and also female playwright. So
right now you don't have no, because you're not the female director.
Yeah,
but do you have a design team that's female?
We have a half female, half male design team.
But I think that's better with women, Because why should they feel isolated and not
Well,
feel
it's not
like
about
everybody's...
isolation at all. It's actually just about kind of trying to up the numbers, like kind of put our money where our mouth is, and kind of go, you know, if we want to change things, and it really is going to be 50-50, you know, this whole idea of kind of, you know, 50% supported, then by kind of just, you know, doing it with action and saying, look, we're going to hire more women.
When you started directing, because when you write your own play, you know what it's about. I mean, you're a part of it. Well, you're a part of it.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you're a part of it. But when you're like directing, say, Charlotte Miller's play, how do you get into her head? How do you know what these characters are saying?
You know, I think you know people from what they do, you know, and so I try to look at the actions that are on the page, and I try to kind of help the actors and physically create an environment where that gets embodied to its fullest. And also Charlotte's one of my best friends, so I also know her personally, so that helps some.
Oh, she is. So you can know what she's thinking, or what you can discuss it?
Well, somewhat, yeah. As much as you can know anybody, like we talk about everything.
Does she discuss the play with you while you're directing?
Hugely, all the time. We talk about that. We actually kind of lived, eat, breathed, died this play for about the last month and a half.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I was going to say what happened is that she had written a play that was about a wedding. And we lost our lead actress because of family stuff going on, and so she actually ended up killing the mother character and rewriting the entire play in 8 days. So this play,
she killed the mother so that she could. Oh, she did a funeral, she said.
Yeah, she literally turned it inside out, and it's a completely new play. And so you know, this was a fast and furious cannonball of a play. I think she wishes, and I think I wish that we had had more passes at it, but I think we did. I was really proud of the work we did in the time we had. And
did you ever think of acting in it?
No, I would never act in anything I directed. I would freak out. I could never do that. So I don't act as much anymore. You know, I love acting so much. I made my living doing it for a long time. I hope to, you know, I still consider myself an actor, but I have more control of my life as a director and producer for our son.
So what about the music, the costumes, the lights of this piece?
It's all a collaboration. These are people I've worked with a lot, except for the sound designer who...
Is that because you're an ensemble? Is that the reason?
Yeah, it's kind of a company. It's a lot of company members, but also just people. I like loyalty in the theater, and I like trying to hire the same people a lot.
That's great,
you know,
isn't it?
I think it builds history and it builds work ethic, and you kind of grow together, and your work grows together.
I think that's fantastic. And before we leave, tell us what Weather Vane is.
Weather Vane is our producing partner, Wendy's, one of her companies. Wendy Van den Heuvel, and she runs Piece by Piece.
And is she from a social family, or
She has, you know, her family, you know, Katrina Van den Heuvel is her sister, and Jean Stein's her mom,
right?
Who I know you probably know from the Andy Warhol days. I was not going to say that, but
no, from interview days.
Yeah.
So Jean Stein's her mother, and she is the Weather Vane producer.
She is, Weather Vane is her company, along with Piece by Piece Productions.
Oh, that's very interesting. Do they do anything other than just theater?
A ton of theater. They do a ton of theater, some documentary film, and some narrative film, but mostly theater. And she's a big supporter of the arts, like her mom is, and we feel really lucky to get to work with her. And she's one of our closest friends. And
so it's all back in New York again.
It's New York, San Francisco, L.A. You know, our next production is going to be in San Francisco.
Oh, it is?
Because that's where Wendy's living right now with her husband and daughter. And Wendy's an amazing actress, so she's going to be the lead in that play. And she was actually going to play the mom in this play.
Oh, that's great.
So, but she had so much going on in different cities that it just became kind of too much, you know, to kind of try to be in 3 cities at one time.
Well, I think that's a great way to end this interview. I like it very much. Yeah, you took me back to my interview days.
I love it good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Danny. I didn't get to call him Danny. We'll be right back with author Damon Willick. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with author Damon Willick, who was born and raised in Los Angeles, and after high school at the Harvard School in the Valley, he earned a Bachelor of Arts and PhD at UCLA. He's an associate professor of modern and contemporary art at Loyola Marymount University. He's written extensively on post-war American art, and along with his book, Valley Vista, which we have on the set, which was published by Angel City Press, he curated an exhibition at Cal State Northridge. So Did the exhibition come first, or did the book come first?
The exhibition came first.
Oh, it did.
But they were a concurrent project, and I conceived of the project first as a curatorial project, and then went and found a publisher.
Oh, that's how it happened?
That's
Because
how it
that's
happened.
the other way around. Usually you have the book, then you do a
Right.
exhibition.
Right.
Well, what were you thinking of? Were you teaching this at in your classes?
So I'm a Los Angeles art historian, if there's such a thing, which is really...
Did you just give yourself a new title?
I did. And in fact, I was spurred and really motivated to respond to the Getty's Pacific Standard Time project.
Oh, that's very interesting,
Yes.
because I was reading what you said, and it was nobody in the Valley was included in that PST, right?
Well, there were a few artists, but the Valley in particular wasn't dealt with as a contributing place to
as
a
an
broader
entity.
Los Angeles history. And so there were over 60 exhibitions about LA art history, and there were exhibitions about Pomona, there were exhibitions
Right.
about Irvine, and so that's what really motivated
But
me.
maybe because that people from those places actually applied for grants
Yes.
and to be included.
Yes.
And maybe nobody in the Valley had representation. They didn't do it.
True, true. And I was a dollar short day late in terms of my idea.
Otherwise,
but
you could have been
I
part of it.
could have been part of it, yes.
So what do you teach in your class at Loyola Marymount?
So I teach a few classes. I teach a general modern art survey, but I also teach classes on post-World War II American art.
But what's a general survey?
A general survey of modern art would start in the 1860s in
Oh,
Paris.
you start way back. Oh,
Yeah, and then end in New York City in the 1960s.
I see, up to that point.
Up to that point, yeah.
And
can
then
be
what
called-
about, then you teach, this goes to 1970, right?
This
Or
goes to 1990.
goes from what is it?
1970 to 1990.
To 70 to 90.
Right, right.
And how did you choose that part?
So I chose that period partly because that's when I was in the Valley. So there's
In the Valley at Harvard?
in the Valley, born in Panorama City.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I grew up in Sherman Oaks.
Oh, that's good. Okay. You
and
were a Valley boy then.
I was a Valley boy, and
Okay.
then I left in 1990. So I wanted what at first started was a post-war history, and in fact, what I found was that it was going to be too large of a project, a project that I couldn't complete in the time that I had. And so I narrowed it down to 1970 to 1990 because I thought that that was probably the most interesting period.
And who were those people? I went through there and saw a lot of the, like Daniele.
Fidel
was very-
Daniele was very important, and he was teaching at Valley College, but he wrote for Art Forum. Before that,
Right.
he organized a publication called LA Artist Publication, which was one of the first major contributions to LA publishing.
But did you know about him at the time?
You know, I didn't. No. So I,
I
knew
mean,
about
he was a name that was familiar to me just
Okay.
from being a part of the art world.
right.
But I didn't think that he was a very important person in the scope of the LA artists. And yet, with Valley Vista, you've made
Right.
these people important.
Well, that in a way is what history does. It really revisits oftentimes overlooked individuals.
Yeah.
But beside Fidel Daniele, there's someone like Robert Smith, who's teaching at California State University Northridge,
Who started Leica?
who started the Los Angeles Institute of Contemporary Art, which before MoCA was the contemporary art center.
Was such a great place to
Yes.
go. And he was so far ahead, wasn't he?
He was, and he wasn't included in any of the Pacific Standard Time.
Because you always think of him more as a director
Oh, sure.
who started that. But Daniele was also a professor, right?
He
Or head
was.
of the department.
He
So
was.
we didn't include these people in the art world per se.
Right. And they were central to
They were. Yeah.
this world.
Because they were finding people, right? And showing them
Mm-hmm.
and nurturing them.
Right.
So the project started, the book, after you got the book
Yes.
with Angel City Press,
Yes.
then what happened?
Then people started to take notice. And in fact, what I've found since the show and the book have been published, now it's the fall of 2014, I can't believe the amount of interest that I've gotten from press and from other scholars.
But once you got the book published, Was it all put together when you went to have it published? Did you
Yes.
have everything done? Oh, you did.
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't. It wasn't a process that you got the publisher and then you started going through these things.
Well, I was curating the show while writing the book, and then I found a publisher, and
I
then
see.
yeah.
Okay, let's say you said you were writing the book, but when I read the book, a
Oh,
lot of other
of
people
course.
wrote the book.
Of course, yes, yes. Right.
So, who wrote the book?
Right. Sure. So I guess really it would be more accurate to say that I am the writer as well as the editor of this book, and there are contributions by Jeffrey Valance, who's an artist as well as a writer. Mike Mandel, the photographer who took the photo that's on the cover.
That's what I went. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll talk about the cover photo in a minute. But
Yeah.
who else? So you had everybody writing essays.
Yes. And
So what kind of an author were you?
well, I wrote,
You wrote the foreword,
which is a 10,000 word piece, and so that and then
and it brought it all.
brought it all. It
together.
wrote the history, and then there are these smaller contributions amongst.
Which is
that
really
essay.
great in a
Yes.
way because it just keeps adding fuel to what
Yes.
your fire started.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
It does because it really brings it together. And I love the way they're written. They're written in the first person,
Yes,
like Mike writes about.
yes, yeah, and
And they're so easy to read.
good, and that was what I had hoped to do.
So when you started with this, you have art, but you also look at architecture.
Yes, I do, and the Valley has long been derided as the home of mini malls and sprawl, and there are actually these small gems that still survive, like Richard Neutra's Kester Avenue School is
That
still
was
there.
shocking. It was such a beautiful picture.
Oh,
I know.
good.
And then what about this Googie style?
The Googie style found a home. So there,
the Valley?
Yeah, and so there are still, like the old Bob's Big Boy in Burbank is still there, which is a great example of Googie style architecture. Or there's a small hamburger stand in Chatsworth called the Munchbox that's still there.
You're mentioning these things. How did you break that valley down into sections? Because the valley is
Sprawling.
a big
Yes.
space. So
Yes.
how'd you break down? How'd you decide what areas to cover?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's partly my own personal history, I think, but also I chose areas that had interest not only to me but also to a broader history that could link into a broader LA history. So really, what I wanted to do was create a book that was about the Valley but broader about Los Angeles. So I chose works and I chose sites that I thought could contribute to existing histories.
So what are some of the sites? So you mentioned Chatsworth, Sherman Oaks.
Sherman Oaks, Northridge, right? So
Northridge.
really, Cal State Northridge becomes the institutional center of art production in the Valley. But these are artists like Walter Gabrielson, Robert Smith, who I mentioned, Robert von Sternberg, a photographer, Ed Severs. These are artists that are part of the LA art world working at Northridge.
But also names that are not so well known, really.
Yeah, that's right. Names that have, and this is what
I mean,
happens.
names we know, we've heard,
Right.
but haven't flourished. Let's say that.
True, and that might have been partly because the Valley only really had one established art gallery, which was the Orlando Gallery, which opened in 1958 and just closed in 2011.
Gino?
Bob Gino and Phil Orlando, yeah. And so that gallery opened 1 year after the more famous Ferris Gallery, which opened in 1957 in La Cienega, on La
They were
Cienega.
at the same time.
At the same time, showing different types of art, though.
But people knew Bob Gino.
Yes.
People talked about the Orlando Gallery, but it kind of was like in the hinterlands.
Oh yeah. Well, the Valley is physically over the hill, right? And so people who are going to the galleries in Hollywood or in West Hollywood or Culver City to get to the Valley takes effort. It's even though it's part of the city, it's
So there's always this stigma about a Valley girl,
Sure.
girl. So are you the Valley guy? I mean, was
Oh,
the
I hope
same
not.
thing that happened with that?
Well, you know that song by Frank Zappa was 1982.
Well, in the middle of
In the middle of this, and in fact, then in 1984 the area code was split, and
the area code.
the area code was split, and that definitely marked people, right? And I don't particularly think that the Valley, being from the Valley, makes me that different than, let's say, my wife who's from Brentwood. I don't.
Oh, I bet she thinks it's different.
That's very funny. Her friends sure think it's different.
I bet that's true.
But you know, what I wrote in the book was this idea that the Valley gets shunned for everything that Los Angeles maybe fears that it is.
Right. Oh, maybe it's just a way to not face yourself, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but we made a lot more out of the art scene in Los Angeles than looking at what you've done now. You've brought it to the forefront.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Because of what it is.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And that was also.
But the public didn't bring it to the forefront. Like the public brought art in LA to the forefront.
Yeah, and I'm very self-conscious of this, knowing that the artists, these are all working. Many of these artists are still working.
It's still working.
Right.
I know.
Right. So I would hate to say that I've like brought them to the forefront, but I think that I gave them maybe a unique platform for people to take notice and to reevaluate.
I think the reevaluation is the great point that you've made. One thing that we haven't mentioned is Judy Baca, who's got the longest mural ever, right?
That's right, right. So the Great Wall of Los Angeles, I actually went to kindergarten across the street from the Great Wall of Los Angeles.
But it wasn't there, was it?
It was just starting, she had just started to paint it.
It was?
And I have vague memories of looking down in the wash basement and seeing when she was working on the panel about Dodger Stadium. And I didn't know the history of Chavez Ravine, but it was that mural. Then I asked my father, who then told me this sordid history of the city forcibly removing a community. And so really, and when I spoke with Judy, I told her the story, and I think she was pleased, knowing that, you know, like that's the whole point of a work like that.
And it's still up, right?
It's still up. They're still extending it, I think.
And who extends it? Who else worked on it with her?
So she brought in at-risk youth from across Los Angeles, and she had them help with the sketches, and
so it was a great educational process.
Yes.
Just as your book is.
Oh, thank you.
Damon, I'm so glad you came and talked to us about this, because now we have to be more aware of what's going on there.
Well, thank you.
And let me hold the cover up. How did you choose this for the cover before we leave?
Sure. So I chose that image, one, because it's a wonderful photograph.
I thought it was you.
Well, and that's why I chose it when I first saw it. If it wasn't for the year, I would have thought that was my grandmother, my brother, and me driving around the valley.
So that brought it really personally home.
It did.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan.
And thanks for watching. Keep writing to JAQUINN1 at AOL.com.